Every summer, gardeners lose the battle. They water in the morning. The soil is dry by noon. They water again. The roots stay shallow. The plants wilt anyway. Exposed soil loses up to 70% of water to evaporation before roots can drink. Modern sprinkler systems waste thousands of gallons fighting physics they cannot win. But 4,000 years ago, Chinese farmers solved this problem. They buried a clay pot, and they never worried about watering again. And at the end of this video, you will have the exact blueprint to build a self-regulating irrigation system that waters your plants on demand, using nothing but a clay pot and 5 minutes of your time. Welcome back to Gardening Explained with Harry. Subscribe so you never miss another secret that could transform your garden forever. Walk outside right now and turn on your sprinkler. Watch what happens. Water arcs through the air. Droplets scatter across leaves, pavement, and soil surface. The sun begins evaporation of moisture before it penetrates the first inch of ground. Studies show that sprinkler irrigation loses massive amounts of water to evaporation alone. The water that does reach soil often runs off compacted surfaces. What remains sits in the top layer where shallow roots form weak plants. Drip irrigation promised to fix this. Emitters deliver water directly to the base of plants, but the water still lands on the surface, and it still evaporates under direct sunlight. Drip systems also clog. They require pressure. They need electricity or batteries. They demand constant maintenance. And they still overwater or underwater, depending on timers that cannot sense what plants actually need. The real problem is fundamental. Surface watering fights gravity and evaporation at the same time. It delivers water from above when roots live below. It operates on schedules when plants operate on demand. The entire approach works against the physics of how water moves through soil. Meanwhile, a technology older than the Roman Empire sits forgotten in archaeological records. Chinese farmers during the Han Dynasty buried unglazed clay pots filled with water directly in their fields. The water seeped through porous walls and into surrounding soil. Roots grew toward the moisture source. Plants drank exactly what they needed, when they needed it. Nothing more, nothing less. The oldest surviving agricultural text in Chinese history documents this practice. A man named Fan Shengji authored the first scientific monograph on farming around the 1st century BC. Despite only 3,500 words surviving to the present day, his techniques achieved reported wheat yields that Western agriculture could not match until the 1940s. Among his innovations was clay pot irrigation. He described burying porous vessels to deliver water directly to root zones. Farmers across China adopted the method. It spread through North Africa and the Mediterranean. Spanish colonizers carried the practice to the Americas. The Spanish word for pot is olla. The name stuck. But here is what makes this technology remarkable. The clay pot does not simply leak water. It responds to the soil around it. Unglazed terracotta contains millions of microscopic pores. Water molecules pass through these pores slowly, very slowly, but the rate of release depends entirely on conditions outside the pot. When surrounding soil is dry, moisture tension increases. Dry soil pulls water through the clay wall. Physicists call this capillary action. It is the same force that draws water upward through a paper towel or pulls liquid up a narrow glass tube. Soil particles create tiny channels between them. Water moves through these channels via surface tension and adhesion. Dry soil creates stronger tension. Wet soil creates weaker tension. The olla pot responds to this gradient automatically. When plants absorb water from soil around the pot, the soil dries slightly. Tension increases. More water seeps through the clay. When rain falls or roots stop drinking, the soil becomes saturated. Tension drops to zero. Water stops flowing from the pot entirely. This is not a timer. This is not a sensor connected to a microprocessor. This is pure physics. The plant and the soil communicate directly with the water source. No human intervention is required. The roots themselves become active participants. After burying an olla among vegetables, roots stretch toward the water source and attach to the outside of the pot. At the end of a growing season, gardeners who dig up their ollas find dense mats of root tissue wrapped around the clay surface. The plants have literally embraced their water supply. This creates deep root systems instead of shallow surface roots. Deep roots access more nutrients. Deep roots survive drought. Deep roots anchor plants against wind. The olla does not just water, it trains plants to become stronger. Now perhaps you remain skeptical. Ancient techniques sound romantic, but modern agriculture uses drip irrigation for a reason. Surely contemporary methods outperform buried clay pots. The research says otherwise. In 2013, scientists in Kenya compared olla irrigation against traditional furrow watering for maize and tomatoes. The results were staggering. Olla saved 97.1% of applied water for maize crops. For tomatoes, the savings reached 97.8%, but water conservation was only half the story. Yield per unit of water increased by 32.2% for maize and 43.7% for tomatoes. Less water in, more food out. A study in India tested melons under different irrigation methods. Olla irrigated plots produced 25 tons per hectare using only 2 centimeters of irrigation water. Flood irrigated plots required 26 centimeters of water to produce 33 tons. The ollas achieved 76% of the yield using less than 8% of the water. Researchers at the University of Arizona published findings stating that buried clay pot irrigation delivers water with efficiency 10 times greater than conventional surface irrigation. 10 times. Not 10% better. 10 times more efficient than sprinklers and hoses. Consider real numbers for a typical backyard garden. A 600 square foot plot using average sprinkler irrigation consumes up to 47,000 gallons over a long growing season. Drip emitters reduce this to roughly 4,300 gallons. An olla watering system for the same space uses approximately 800 gallons. The reduction from sprinklers to ollas represents a 98% decrease in water consumption. The soil surface also remains dry between ollas. Weed seeds require surface moisture to germinate. Dry topsoil means fewer weeds competing with your vegetables. Fungal diseases spread through wet foliage. Ollas never wet the leaves. Disease pressure drops. Plants stay healthier with zero chemical intervention. Consistent subsurface moisture prevents the stress cycles that ruin harvests. Tomatoes crack when soil alternates between dry and wet. Leafy greens turn bitter under drought stress. Peppers drop blossoms when roots cannot find water. Ollas eliminate these fluctuations. The soil stays evenly moist at root level day after day. Here is the setup that takes 5 minutes and costs almost nothing. You need one unglazed terracotta pot. The standard clay pot from any garden center works perfectly. Size depends on your bed. A 6 to 10 inch diameter serves most vegetable gardens. The pot must be unglazed. Glazed ceramic seals the pores, and plastic obviously cannot work. Only raw fired clay allows water to pass through. You need something to seal the drainage hole. A flat stone, a wine cork, or a rubber stopper will do. Food-grade silicone caulk creates a permanent seal. You need a lid. A terracotta saucer works perfectly. A flat rock or a piece of scrap wood also works. The lid prevents evaporation and keeps debris and mosquitoes out. That is your entire shopping list. One pot, one plug, one lid. Take your terracotta pot and flip it over. Apply waterproof sealant around the drainage hole at the bottom. Press your plug firmly over the hole. A metal stamping blank creates a perfect seal. Let the sealant cure according to package directions. Fill the pot with water and watch. The porous clay will darken as moisture saturates the walls. If water drips from the bottom, your seal needs reinforcement. If the pot simply becomes damp on the outside, you have a functioning olla. Choose your location. Dig a hole in your garden bed, matching the pot depth. Leave 1 to 2 inches of the rim above soil level. This prevents dirt and mulch from washing inside during rain. Place your sealed pot into the hole. Now the critical step. Pack soil firmly against the outside of the clay. If air pockets exist between soil and pot, water will not transfer properly. Roots will not grow into empty spaces. Press dirt tightly against the entire surface. Eliminate any gaps. This direct soil contact is what makes the physics work. Fill the pot with water. Place your lid on top. You are finished. For larger garden beds or thirstier plants, you can create a double capacity olla. Take 2 identical terracotta pots. Seal the drainage hole on one pot. Apply a bead of waterproof caulk along the rim of that sealed pot. Flip the second pot upside down and press its rim against the first. The 2 pots form a sphere with the unsealed drainage hole now pointing upward as a filling port. Use tape to hold the pots together while the sealant cures. This doubled vessel holds twice the water and extends refill intervals significantly. You can also connect multiple ollas into an automated system. An irrigation tube fitted into each olla connects to a raised water barrel. Gravity feeds water from the barrel into the ollas as they empty. A 5-gallon bucket elevated above garden level can keep multiple ollas filled for an entire week without any attention. Some gardeners connect their olla network to rainwater harvesting systems. Gutters feed a collection barrel. The barrel feeds the ollas. Rain becomes irrigation automatically. 0 municipal water required. 0 utility cost. Placement matters for coverage. Water from an olla moves outward approximately twice the diameter of the pot. A 10-inch pot irrigates a 20-inch radius around itself. For intensive vegetable beds, place ollas every 2 to 3 feet. Larger pots with 2-gallon capacity can space 3 to 4 feet apart. The Ecology Action Research Organization tested 5-gallon ollas in 100 square foot plots. Each olla consumed about 1¼ gallons every 4 days while maintaining perfect soil moisture. Certain crops respond especially well to olla irrigation. Plants with fibrous spreading root systems find the water source easily. Tomatoes thrive. Peppers flourish. Squash and melons excel because their creeping roots wrap around the clay hungrily. Cucumbers produce abundantly. Beans and peas fix nitrogen while drinking from buried pots. Herbs stay flavorful without the bitterness that drought stress creates. Leafy greens with shallower roots also benefit, though placement must be closer. Lettuce planted within 12 inches of an olla receives consistent moisture without wet leaves that invite disease. Kale and Swiss chard grow sweeter when never stressed for water. Root vegetables present the main limitation. Carrots and radishes may encounter the buried pot during growth. Plant these in beds without ollas or position pots at bed edges where roots will not collide with clay. Ollas also do not work for sprouting seeds. Germinating seeds need surface moisture that buried pots cannot provide. Start seedlings normally with surface watering. Once they establish roots, the olla takes over permanently. Grain crops in large-scale row agriculture cannot use ollas economically. The coverage per pot is too limited for acres of wheat or corn. This technology serves gardens, raised beds, orchards, and small market farms. In saline soils or regions with brackish water, ollas provide unique advantages. Salt accumulates wherever water evaporates. Surface irrigation leaves salt deposits in root zones. Olla irrigation moves water laterally underground where evaporation cannot occur. Salt stays at the surface away from roots. Researchers have successfully used this method for land restoration in extremely arid environments where surface watering failed completely. The question arises, if this technology works so well, why does nobody use it? 15-inch terracotta pots cost about $1 at discount stores. 5 pots irrigate a significant garden bed. Total investment under $5. That same garden bed might require $200 of drip irrigation equipment. The olla needs no replacement parts, no clogged emitters, no pressure regulators, no timers, no batteries. A technology that costs nothing and lasts forever generates no recurring revenue. No company builds a business model around selling something once. The irrigation industry sells systems with components that need replacement. Filters that clog, tubes that degrade, batteries that die. Annual purchases keep revenue flowing. International development programs historically ignored low-cost, traditional irrigation methods despite the majority of the world's drylands being farmed by small-scale subsistence farmers. The funding followed expensive infrastructure projects with contractors and equipment suppliers. Buried clay pots required no engineering firms, no construction crews, no imported technology. The University of Arizona Extension Service noted that olla irrigation nearly disappeared with the rise of modern systems, not because it stopped working, because it stopped generating economic activity. Yet the pots remain buried in soils across 4 continents. Farmers in Mexico still use them. Gardeners in Spain still use them. Villages across North Africa still use them. The knowledge never truly vanished. It simply stopped being promoted. Now it returns. Water scarcity intensifies globally. Municipal restrictions limit lawn and garden irrigation. Utility costs climb annually. Aquifers deplete faster than rainfall replenishes them. Suddenly, a 4,000-year-old technology looks less like primitive history and more like advanced engineering. You refill an olla once or twice per week, depending on climate and plant demand. Check the water level by looking into the filling port. If you can see water, the system is working. Top off as needed. That is your total ongoing labor. Before winter freezes arrive, remove ollas from the ground. Porous clay absorbs water. Absorbed water expands when frozen. Expansion cracks the pot. Bring them inside before frost. Store them dry. Replant them each spring. The same pots last for years with basic care. The clay pot is buried. The water is poured. And from this moment forward, your garden waters itself. Subscribe and watch the next video to discover more forgotten technologies hiding beneath nature.